So tell us then about how that awakening, how you were then able to use that in the intuitive kind of healing that you do now. And so how do you use channeling?
It felt in the beginning, it felt like a separate thing because I remember saying, I'm going to go sit in my chair and channel now. And I would do it for myself. I didn't do it in front of any other people. And I felt like I needed to get comfortable. I looked at some books, read a little bit about it. Unfortunately, anything I ever read, it was always kind of sounded greetings, earthlings kind of channeling,
Right.
which I don't relate to. Mine just these wonderful words of wisdom would come through, and I always felt wonderful afterwards. So then I started opening up to family members, and I knew that I could sit with them and talk to them and give them counsel. So I treated it kind of as a separate thing, but how it's over the years, people don't even know that I'm doing it. So when they're sitting and talking to me, I may mention something and they'll say, "Oh, how did you know that?" Or during hypnosis, I'll say a certain thing or guide them in a way, and they'll say, "It's so weird. I saw it in my mind and then you said it." So that's how I'm able to integrate. I no longer think of it as a separate thing that I do. And I don't even do channeled readings. I did them for a brief period of time. I still feel that people want to know their future. They want to know these kind of not mundane, but
Yeah.
to me, I feel like you're getting this wise, wise counsel. If you could talk to whoever in history, somebody wise, what would you ask them? So when people ask typical questions, I would feel like that's not what they're communicating with you. It's more your life purpose, why you're here, knowing that you're surrounded by support, those kinds of things.
Okay. So
So it kind of took a little while, but I feel like it's very natural now. It's
yeah,
not a separate.
well, that's a really important distinction. And it's really interesting to hear. So you did channeled readings for a little bit and the whole
Mhm.
greetings earthlings thing. And that's where people really, it's almost mediumship, where people they step out of themselves and allow something completely different to come through them. So you're saying that's not what you do, and have you ever done that or only briefly?
Okay, so the Greetings Earthling is the only thing I found on channeling, like online
Right.
back then. It would always be kind of this removed, almost like an ET kind of Greetings Earthling talking about the earth. And I would think, that's not what I do. That doesn't feel like what I do.
Right.
Mine would feel very personal, but I would say it's almost like meeting Jesus and Santa Claus at the same time. These unbelievable, loving, firm, wise souls that are talking to you or energy that's talking to you. So
Was
it
there a
didn't feel.
sorry, was there a specific one? I mean, so famously, there's things like Seth Speaks. And so that's where Jane Roberts is a person, but she would
Hmm.
then channel a completely different entity. And it would be like, Jane's not here, Seth's talking now. So that's one version of channeling. So it sounds like, and so when you're getting information, is it from something specific, like a one being, like a Seth who would come through and do it, or is it from a general source of wisdom that can be a number of things that whatever's needed at the time?
Exact that it's whatever's needed at the time. And I know even that we do separate. We want to have a picture of somebody. We want to know an identity. So in the beginning, I didn't know who Raphael was. I thought it was an artist. He was an artist. So
Okay.
when I would write things, it would be Raphael. And then I met someone that talked about angels and archangels, and I thought,
Right.
I think that's what I'm doing. Spirit guides, other people's guides, my own guides. I work with. I have 9 very tall beings of light. And they've come through as the eternal beings of light. So
Okay.
that's my kind of posse that I work with. However, I channel a lot. I feel like I have a bouncer that allows energy to come in if it's necessary and it's for the person's higher growth.
Uh,
But I don't feel I'm not a medium where anybody can come in and I get information. I tend to get nothing. So I don't even call myself a medium. If it is a past loved one and there's something that needs to be said for them, again, for their spiritual growth, that can come through once in a while, but it usually is from their guides, or I feel like the 2 guides get together and have a conversation, and
yeah.
that's what we're doing. What does this person need right now? And I feel comfortable with that. I do feel comfortable with that. So it's not one entity that I say this is the entity that speaks wisdom.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a useful distinction. And I think that's the kind of thing you're more likely to hear from someone like us, a hypnotherapist, a past life regression therapist. So I'm exactly the same. So I wouldn't even though I don't use the word channeling, but I do feel we definitely tap into our sub and super conscious wisdom. We say in hypnosis, if you want someone to go on hypnosis, go there first. So I'll go into a hypnotic state myself, and I want you to access your super conscious wisdom. So in session, I'll feel that I'm accessing my super conscious wisdom as well, but I don't feel a need to personify it, call out to an individual, give them a name, because then that's kind of another version of self. I think there's an ultimate universal wisdom you can tap into, and I'll have exactly the same thing. How did you know that? I think just wisdom is enough in its own, and as something to be able to tune into, and because we want to get the higher wisdom out of our clients, and that's part of the spiritual practice of giving sessions to people, as you have these sort of magical moments where you start to feel, maybe I'm a bit psychic, because you're really tapping into, and you can, if you can lean into that and get into channeling on the psychic side. But I think a lot of hypnotherapists or past life regression people notice that they are tuning into those kind of things, but may never give it that kind of terminology. But the terminology and names you do give are interesting, and like Raphael, which is an archangel, and Michael is another one. So I wouldn't even say I've got angels or guides that or channels that I connect with, but I'm like, oh, well, actually, Michael comes through all the time. And when I was living in Bangalore, Sai Baba would come through a lot, for sessions. You mentioned about being a skeptical spiritualist, and I'm also, okay, so you said you're this and that, angels or guides. Then I'm like, okay, so, put your money where your mouth is. There's a therapeutic resolution we're doing with this person. What do you say to them? Then they'll go ahead and read the textbook. I'm about to say it, and then they'll say it for me, So then it becomes the client saying it, and they're using their words. And so we're eliciting their inner wisdom from them, their inner wisdom. And the other fascinating thing is you interview them pre-session, and they stumbling around, they're doing their best, but honestly, not too wise. And then you just ask them the questions, and they come up with mind-blowingly wise things.
Unbelievable. And I love that. And that's why I like the idea when I was saying I don't like to do readings. I think it's so important for the person to experience it and to have it come through them, and they hear their own words. Because you could go to 10 psychics. We all know people that go to mediums and psychics all the time, and they're looking for that answer that if they don't get it there, they're going here. It's not helping in your spiritual growth. If you're serious about really growing and learning more about yourself that way, then it needs to come from you. And to have someone like you or I, they feel safe. They feel that you're professional, that you know what you're doing, and they can do that in that space. They feel very comfortable and safe in that space.
Yeah. And really giving them every chance to say it themselves is important, not tripping out on, I'm the wise one who tell you. I think we're really about where we're getting the wisdom out of you, and blow me away with what you can do. And I'll give them every chance to do that. And I believe in the resources and the wisdom they have. And I'm not that interested in, in myself, and, but as a facilitator, it's amazing.
Yes. And as a channel, again, I kind of, somebody had told me I was a channel, so I just said, okay. And, but I never, what I read about other channels, I thought, but that's not me. And that's not how I feel like it works. I'm fully present. I feel like I step aside a little bit, but the words that do come out, Barbara's going, well, that's brilliant. The words are coming out. This is wonderful. But they kind of still fade away like wisps of smoke. I'm fully present at that time. But afterwards, I'll have a discussion with the person, and they'll ask me more questions, and I'll be able to answer them, or they'll bring something up and I'll say, oh, I forgot I said that. But at the time, you're fully present.
And everything you're saying really is in alignment with the principles of past life regression therapy, between lives regression therapy. So in past lives and between lives, we've got spirit guides, we've got a soul group of people that we incarnated with, and then there's a soul council that can guide us, and that guides us as an individual and as a therapist. And so we can take a client into that scene where they can meet their soul council. And for you to have wise beings as well that can assist in the session itself. So this is all happening for the purposes of therapeutic resolutions of people's issues as well, isn't it?
Oh, yes.